This episode of Yes But Why podcast is brought to you by Audible. Get a free audiobook download and a 30-day free trial at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. Over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle, or MP3 player. Download your free audiobook today at audibletrial.com/yesbutwhy. I'm Amy Jordan, and this is Yes But Why podcast. Yeah.
My mom was a theater educator on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. She started at Gulfport Little Theater. And I literally sat in a playpen in her office, like most of my youth, either there or then she eventually moved to like Lynn Meadows Discovery Center, and that was a children's museum that she ran and kind of created and ran a program out of. She was nominated for a Tony in the educational theater sector because apparently that's a new award.
Awesome.
But yeah, she was a director, like very much a director, and like I was in ballet when I was 3. I just started playing piano when I was 4. I did plays, I did musicals, I did choir, sang at church, did all the creative things. We had a small family band that I like ran booking for, and we played weddings, and I brought little business cards to bridal shops and things.
Oh my god! So you were like showbiz from birth,
I guess, but not in like not the flashy way, like the like Gulfport, Mississippi way, you know. But my mom,
man, it's the real way.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah.
My mom like was just kind of a show parent for sure, but not like she was not a stage mom for me. By any means, because she ran this program, so it was like all of them were her kids, and so I was like one of the kids, but I honestly got probably, except for like the most criticism out of everybody was like put on me for sure, but I didn't get like the mom who was like, well, Aubrey's just fantastic and she's so talented, and she was like, Aubrey, I can't cast you in this play because they're gonna think that there's favoritism, so
whoa,
you don't get a role, like that kind of level.
Yeah.
The other level.
Probably true, but harsh realities out of that, man.
Yeah. I mean,
you're like, but nepotism helps everyone else. Why can't it help me?
Yeah.
No, darn.
But everybody hated this like other chick that was like in the theater community that always got parts because like that was kind of what it was. So she was really trying to avoid other kids like hating me.
Yeah.
But also it's a weird environment to grow up in. Like,
yeah.
It is hyper creative and like really amazing for a lot of different reasons, and I don't think I would be the same person I am today if it weren't for all of that. But yeah, I was always hyper involved. I didn't have a lot of time to myself. I remember like high school was like get up really early in the morning. I had an obsession with running for some reason, even though I was always I think I just like woke up and the amount of anxiety I was feeling just like dumped on me. I was like, get out, and just like started running.
Seems like a good way to work with that anxiety.
Yeah, so we wake up like around like 5 in the morning, go running, come back, get ready for school, drive my sister and I to school, do school, come home for like maybe an hour, shove something in my face, then go to either like dance practice, choir practice, like theater practice or whatever, be in rehearsals for hours, come back, have to do AP homework, get 4 hours of sleep, and do the whole thing over again.
Yeah.
And that's like nutty. Like I definitely grew up in a time where like, you know, she was also trying to get kids into college, so she was like extracurriculars and like you have to do all the things, and like
yeah,
I really, you know, I benefited from that for sure. Like I got into the college of my dreams. I went and did things because of that. But like looking back now, I'm like, how did I do all of that?
Like, I feel like sometimes some of us have it in us to do that kind of thing, and then others, like, perhaps your mother just ingrained this kind of schedule. Because, like, realistically in life, that's the schedule. Yeah. Like, if you want to work out early morning, sounds like a good plan. School, sub for work, whatever that might be. And then in the evening, you go do your art stuff, before you get home to do whatever that is. It's like real life, and it was practice for that, whether or not that was your natural inclination. Right. Do you find that now when you have more of your own schedule to build, that you pack it in, or do you give yourself space?
I think it varies. I think I have really dramatic kind of like either I'm doing everything all at once, or I have a few days off and I go spend it out in nature or something. So I think I have like chunks of packed in versus not. And I don't know, as far as the creation of the album has gone, because that's kind of been on my mind for the last like 3 months basically. And
I bet.
As far as that goes, I've been trying to schedule myself a little bit lighter so I have time to think and like really like suss out the production notes and stuff like that. And so I think it just varies, but I do tend towards a busier schedule. I like to be busy. I like to have things to do. I don't like to be bored. Although if I do too much, then I don't get to write, which is like bad because that's how I get all my feelings out.
Yeah. And nobody wants to think of writing as work. Like, even though I'm, whenever I write, it usually is some sort of, work feeling thing. I'm like, no, this is for me. This is a joyous, expelling. This is an idea that my brain created. What a beautiful thing. Like, but I like that you're talking about working on your album and giving yourself a little bit of space, because I think, the beginning of this album was essentially like doing shows all the time, busy, building it from there, right? So, it seems right that at this point you would like take a breather to be like, hey, what did I make? Let's take a look.
Yeah. And it is kind of weird. Like you go to the studio and you record it, and then it's in the hands of somebody else for a couple weeks to a month or something. And then they have you listen to it and you're like, oh, this is what I made. That's cool. But like when you're in the studio listening to it back, like doing take after take after take, like listening to it over and over and over again, you're like psyching yourself out. Like, I just heard something that was messed up there. Is that rhythm off? Like, let me hear that again. And you're like, oh no, it's fine. But it's like a neurotic process. And I think that it's really good to like, before this, I've only done like closet recordings.
Sure.
So that's a very different experience than having somebody else's hands on it and like and
is that
ears.
good
I know
bad?
It is good. It's good for me because I'm a perfectionist and I can hold on to something so tight that I choke it, and like
I totally understand that for sure. It's nice to have a team. It's nice to have other people who want to help. Believe me, there's a lot of times that, I'm sure both of us have done things where it's like, no one wants to help? Really? Okay, fine. Do it on my own.
Well, it's like, back in the day, perfectionist type person. So even in school, like, you would get assigned a group project and I would be the only one and like coming through on it. And so I think that's interesting though, because like for a very long time I was solo and I didn't really want to have a band. And I think I did that because I did like having creative control over something, and I was really into being the person that could like create and perform all of it and do all of it myself. And then after about like a year and a half of doing that, I was like, no, I want like somebody else in on this that also like wants to help create this. And I think that there's a point with like your art, not with everybody, but I think a lot of singer-songwriters struggle with like letting somebody else like help with it in some way or another.
And I think to your point of the experience you're having right now with the person who's editing and, mastering it for you and working on it, like, you're allowing them, you've opened yourself up to the experience of letting their creativity help you.
Right.
And if people are held back, it's great to be writing your own songs, to have creative control over that. Like, I totally understand that. But at a certain point in the business of the career, you're going to have to give control to other people.
Totally.
I mean, everybody. I think about this even with like actor friends. Because like, you know, I went to college for theater. There were people that were like doing, you know, Shakespeare monologues and really wanting to like move themselves up. And like, they were these strong people. And I wanted to be like, okay, but keep in mind that the world you're about to enter, you're gonna be, you know, at the mercy of other people.
Right.
Like, your amazing ideas are not what's going to happen first. Like, and keep hold of your own ideas, but know that part of it is going to be collaborating with people that maybe you like or don't like.
Right. And you have to work with people who you don't agree with, because oftentimes those are the people that'll introduce concepts that are unfamiliar to you and make your stuff better, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've definitely experienced that, and like conflict can make some really beautiful stuff, but you have to be okay with kind of communicating through the conflict. It can't just be like, I mean, there's so many stories of like bands breaking up or like butting heads, and it all becomes like ego, because I feel like a lot of the time musicians, and I think I've had the tendency to do this as well, but they're like, oh no, my music's just for everybody else. It's just for everybody else, and I just want to share it so people can communicate and feel love and all the like lovey-dovey things. And that's part of it, yes. Like, music can change lives and can catch somebody, like, and make them think about something in a different way, but it's also like somewhat of a narcissistic endeavor. Like, it's a little bit like, you know, you want people to know why you feel the way you feel too. And I think that you're remiss as an artist if you don't acknowledge that in some sense. I don't know.
You made me think of, you were talking about having different voices and how, you know, conflict, you know, you have to work through conflict in the most open way possible. I want to say like a year or so ago, I went to this diversity conference, and it was like about opening people's minds to like why diversity is a good thing. They're like, okay, I understand that people tell you to do this, and you're like, great, I should do it, but let me explain to you in a real like business way why this is good. And it was exactly what you said, which was, we all have different points of view, and we need all these different viewpoints. Like, the way this guy looks at this is totally different than the rest of us, and we need him because he helps us have a complete picture of what we need to create or you know make happen or whatever. And it can be hard to deal with different points of views because that person is bringing up something that's in opposition to yours, but you need to be open to melding those two ideas. How do they both work together, not separately? And I was like, oh, this is great. I also was like, oh, good, my improv can help in this endeavor. I was like, okay, I can use this. Concept. Yeah. Well, because I'm always going to these kinds of events, you know, that are unrelated to, you know, teaching theater. Right. Just so I can be like, okay, I need to know what I can do to be a better person, because being a better person makes better art, I think, in especially in improv, which has that sort of like positivity, yes, and like, let's be a team. I need to be the best team person. I need to lead teams as best as I can for that to work out. But to your idea on collaborating when it comes to music, it can be tough to navigate negativity, especially when there seems to be a lot of it. You know, the world these days is definitely angrier, you know, than it used to be. And so there's a lot of reaction. There doesn't seem to be a lot of openness to, you know, hey, you're saying something that I disagree with. Let's talk about it so that I can understand it. How has that concept affected any part of your, you know, artistic career? Or is it just something you see in other groups?
So, I mean, you know, what's interesting about playing out in different places, especially outside of Austin, is my music attracts like people I don't think I necessarily would have anticipated to like it or listen to it or give me any sort of pedestal to like talk about my feelings on. Like, I guess it's attracted like a few like conservative folk, and like I do enjoy talking to people who have different viewpoints than me, because I feel like, again, if we can talk about things and like come to like some points of understanding, I feel like we could dissolve a lot of, like, the anger is based out of fear. The fear is that life is not going to be the way that it once was, or that people expect it to be or expected it to be. And I think that a lot of the anger comes from like fear-based thinking and like this kind of understanding people kind of put themselves under of like, I don't know, people are out to get me, like, or the world is out to get me. And like, I feel like it's more prevalent these days because we are doing a lot of things that people don't wake up to or don't want to acknowledge. Like, it's like, yeah, you go buy paper plates and like red Solo cups, and like you're talking about like, you know, how global warming doesn't exist, and it's like you're actively contributing, and like all the terrible things that are happening in the world. And I feel like people are in a lot of pain and they're really scared because even if they don't acknowledge what's going on, I think there's so much, like, the media is everywhere, people hear things. I think there's an understanding that like, yeah, we're in a bad spot right now. We're in a bad spot, and people are just trying to like cling to whatever's familiar and be like, no, you're wrong because like what you're saying makes me uncomfortable, and obviously what makes me uncomfortable is detrimental to me. But in actuality, a lot of the time what makes you uncomfortable is like things you find truth in or see truths in my opinion. Like, I don't know, it's just I
think that's the artist point of view, like, because I've thought about that throughout my life, you know, like I have that, you know, open-eyed view of like, but why can't we just, it's okay that we disagree, like it's okay that you're scared, it's okay, you know, because we're in art, right? Yeah. So our job forever has been to understand how other people do it. It wasn't necessarily, which is probably harkens back to me saying like I'm squashing down all my emotions, right. But it's like I was trying to be everybody else. I wasn't trying to be me, I was trying to be somebody else. So now I'm able in a larger sense to see the way other people are. And like we were talking about earlier, like I'm like, well, what am I thinking? I don't know what I want, but I can tell I can see everything else just because of the way we look. And also arts groups have a tendency to be more, what's the word I'm looking for? Like they care about people and they want to help people. There's a better word for that, but I'm going to go for it. For the phrases. My thought is these people that are coming to you in these events, what about, are they telling, like, is it just that you see the crowd and you see these people, or are people coming up to you and saying, hey, this song that you sang spoke to this thing that I'm going through, and you see how what you're singing is connecting to the way in which people of a conservative ilk are feeling lost?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a lot of the songs that I write have universal meanings. They have a very specific meaning for me, but that's kind of the other crazy thing about art is when you put it out there, it becomes something else.
Yeah.
It becomes something else for somebody else, for somebody else's life. And like the specific song that kind of comes back to a lot of the time, and that's not just conservative folk, it's like people that are a lot older, like 70s and 80s even, will come to, like, I had like a ticketed show that's a little more of like an older crowd that comes to, and the way they talk to me about this specific song, as well as like I mean, he told me he was a Trump supporter. Like, he told me like different things about his life, and we had a long conversation. But it was a song called "Mean to Me," and the lyrics at the beginning kind of go, "Just because I am not what I was, that doesn't mean you can be mean to me." And I kind of repeat that over and over again throughout the song. And there's other parts of it like that are a little more specific, but at least I thought they were more specific. But so many people have told me, but you just said like this was my life story. You just spoke my life story is kind of what they tell me in like a certain regard. But I'm like, no, but it was about all. It's like, but you can't say that. You can't like tell people no, because art. Nor would I want to, like, you know.
Yeah.
But it's cool how that happens, and like how different people can react to it, and the people that you might not expect to like come and talk to you, like once I know my look is like a little bit not edgy, because like there are people that are way more edgy than I am, but like, you know, I'm singing folk inspired tunes and my hair is blue and my sides are shaved, and like I have songs that kind of sound like bluegrassy and a little country, and like people are, you know, like somebody walks in a bar in Round Rock and they like look at me and they're like, or they hear the music and then they look at me and they're like shocked for a second, and I can see that. And I'm like, but then they like kind of like stick around, they listen, and then they're like wanting to talk to me, and I think that's an interesting thing. And I think a lot of artists have done this before me. Like Dolly Parton was one of the ones who was like, just like she dresses in the like Texas horror kind of thing, like that's, and she said that like specifically that she did this so that people like would pay attention and look at her, and once they got all over all that, they would be like, hey, she's incredible, like, whoa. Listen to her sing, listen to the like songs that she's written, listen to the catchy melodies, listen to like all of this. And people love Dolly Parton, and I think that she's totally capitalized on this idea of like, you know, I mean, like that's how she feels comfortable, that is who she is. She's not trying to be anybody else. She's not trying to be anybody else in the country music world. She's not trying to be anybody else in the pop music world, anything else. She's just Dolly Parton. She is who she is. And I think, especially in the day and age of social media, a lot of us struggle with like who we actually are, or like how we should present ourselves online versus like who, like, you know, like everybody, or not everybody, but I feel like a lot of my friends who are actors or musicians or artists in any right are always posting like, look at this badass thing that I'm doing, look at this cool thing, like I'm going to another audition, I'm going like doing this today, I'm on set for here, I'm whatever. And like all of us go through like deep, dark, depressing like moments where we like can't get out of our bed some days because we're like, is it enough? And what am I doing enough to like be the artist? And
it's funny because I feel like similarly what you're saying right now makes me think of these people who are reacting to your songs, in that they're trying to compare themselves to some ideal in the same way that, like, you know, when you are having an off day and you look at your friend's Instagram feed and they're doing great, it's like, why? I don't know why we have to compare ourselves to other people, like what it is about, you know, and not just creative people, like full humanity.
Yeah.
We are just constantly comparing
totally.
ourselves in every possible way. How can we do this? What is going on? And even, I forget what you mentioned, but I thought to myself, like, it ebbs and flows what fashion is. Oh, like Dolly Parton. Like, what Dolly Parton looks like has been consistent, you're right, throughout all the time. But it has ebbed and flowed whether or not it was, like, wild or not.
Right.
Because it was like, for a while, it was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And then like mid-'80s, it was like, yeah, she's pretty tame. Like, and then
exactly.
And then it goes back again, and people are like, you know, covering up more, and they're like, what's up with that cleavage? And it goes up and down because what we see, what we decide is the comparative ideal changes constantly, right? Totally. And while this idea that like, it's funny because when you mention the people, and whenever I have auditions or anything, I never post about it. And I know that in the world of social media, I get them older probably. It's probably why I don't post as much. But I always feel like it jinxes it or something. Like I would never say that I have an audition because I'm like, don't tell anybody about that. Then they'll know if you don't get it. Like,
right.
Or like, I'm having a good day. I'm going to post this 3 or 4 days later so that I feel like if I take a photo of myself and I look good, and I'm like, great. 3 days from now when I look like trash, I'm going to be like, yep, I'm attractive. Look at that.
There you go.
And I don't know why. Like, it's my own little like mental game with the whole situation. But I feel like trying to compare yourself is so hard. Yeah. And the older you get, the more differences that don't matter at all. Like growing up, if you talk to your high school group of friends, if you were told like senior year or right as you're about to leave, like, okay, now I'm going to tell you guys which one of you guys are going to have money and which of you won't when you're an adult, older. And you're like, whoa, what? I do not want to know this. Because it creates unusual stuff. And so years later, when you're connecting with people, you're like, oh, she's a lawyer and she lives in New York City. I can't talk to her anymore. It's like, no, she's the same girl. She just worked hard in her way and you're working hard in your way. And things just happen to work out the way that they do. Like, you can't just, I feel like that's a constant thing that I have to remind myself not to do. And also kind of one of the reasons why I do the podcast and talk to people that are of varying ages. Like sometimes I talk to people in their 60s and it's like, hey man, you've been doing theater for so long. What's that about? Or or I talk to somebody where it's like, hey, you've taken 2 improv classes. What do you think? Like just because who we are as creative people is our own journey, and Definitely. It's important to acknowledge our own journey. And then also, I guess in the comparative way, we could say, oh, I'm similar to this, or I envy this person, so I want to be like them. I want to follow a path similar to them. But no, I mean, every day that you choose to continue to do it, I think is the best day.
Yeah. And I wish there were days it was easier to, see that,
Yeah.
Because, I definitely, this is, the first time I've ever recorded an album. I also just recently tried to go, not tried, I'm doing it. I have a hard time. I have a hard time with that. People are like, oh, you're doing music full time. I'm like, I'm trying. And I don't know why I keep saying that, because I am doing it. I'm doing it to the level that a lot of Austin musicians are, so I don't know why in my head sometimes it feels like I'm not.
I feel like sometimes we accept other people's judgment. We feel like when they're like, oh, really? That's a thing you're doing? You're not going to have a job like me? It's like that's their comparative thing, and then that makes you feel bad. I just read an article about people who talk to, high school or college age people who are, going to get a theater degree, and they're like, oh yeah, you can't do that. That's not a real option. And the article was like, how about you stop saying that? Would you say that to anyone about anything else? If they were like, I'm going to go work for the city in sanitation, I'd be like, good for you. That's good benefits. Good job. Excellent. Help the recycling.
Yeah.
People instead are like, what? Terrible. Why would you choose such a thing? It's life is mine to have.
Yeah. And if you, there are lots of jobs you can get with a theater degree.
Yeah.
I think that, well, me, it was kind of I had a theater degree, and then I realized my last year of school, I was like, I don't want to be an actor.
You can totally swear.
I'm like, this is fun. I studied for 4 years to be an actor, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this. And I don't know. I feel like, undergrad shouldn't necessarily be, it's become so much more of a prerequisite anyway, that, just do the thing that you love. Do the thing you want to, learn more about and become passionate about. And, that's okay if you don't go into that field, a lot of people don't know who they want to be at 18 years old. And so they're like, I have an idea of, what I like, and so that's kind of what I went after. And I think the theater degree has helped me in a number of ways to be a musician, to be a better performer. And there's so much that goes into that there. But when I got out of school, it was I didn't know what to do, because that was all I prepared for. And I just got an office job that I didn't jive well with, and quit pretty soon after. And kind of did in a month what I feel like some people's gap years are, which I don't know why those aren't more of a thing. I really wish that I had taken a year to figure out, or to just kind of think about what it is I wanted to do before just hurtling ahead. I feel like that's been kind of the detriment of my life a little bit, before I really sat down and was like, what do I want to do? It was just been this hurtling ahead of I gotta do something, so I guess I'll do this, and kept just doing that. And
that's what I think leads people into unnecessary grad school.
Yeah.
They're just another, more.
Yeah, okay, 1 more year of school. Cool, yeah, that makes sense. I'll do something after that, right? And it's so many people now even graduate with master's degrees, PhDs, and they can't get a job.
Yeah.
Because the roles for that are disappearing, or it changes into an industry where it's more of a gig economy, and all of a sudden you're a doctor with a job through an app or something,
right.
It's, and I think that a lot of there's a lot of disenchantment that you avoid by, like, kind of not taking a step back from school, in my opinion. I think it's important to go to school. I think I value my degree a lot. Like, I really do. But I sometimes wish I had taken a breath before I went from overcommitted kid, like, doing all the things, to, like, college and being overcommitted there, and then, like, leaving college and then being like, holy shit, this is life. And nobody really told, like, everybody told me, like, how hard it would be to be, like, at college and how hard that would be. And, like, you graduate and people are just like, off you go. And it's not really like okay, this is what adult, like, nobody really tells you.
They don't.
And then you're like...
There's nothing that prepares you.
No. And then all of a sudden, like, your semester schedule, like, overachieving brain is like, wait, I'm waiting years to do things now? Not, like, 9 weeks? Are you, for, like... And then it's like, and all of a sudden, like, 2 months have passed, and you're like, oh, I actually haven't written anything. And you're like, how? Like, you know, it's baffling. It's still kind of baffling, even though I've been out of it for 4 years now. Yeah, next year will be my 5-year reunion. Jesus, that's weird. But...
Yeah. I mean, they don't prepare you for what's going on with that. And I was actually thinking, and we were talking just now about the people with the PhDs, you know, like, who knows, they got a PhD in, like, dramaturgy, and it's like, well, what's that good for? And realistically, I think everyone needs to separate the ideas of education and career in their brains. Yeah. Because I don't think there is any real education that leads directly to a career. Anything at all. Even business degrees. People are like, get a business degree. And I was like, great. So that I know how businesses work. Not that I have a job at a business, but, like, I now understand what's going on underneath the, like, I don't need to know how sausage is made. I just need a job. Like, and the idea is that I think then we do to ourselves again what we're doing when we compare ourselves to people on Instagram, which is this person who went and got the PhD in, you know, like, theater literature. Yeah. And then they're like, well, what am I going to do with it? You're going to cherish that information in your brain, and whatever you learned will come out later. And I know that you just said, like, this idea of things take 2 years now instead of 9 weeks. I kind of, now that I'm older, I love that. I like the fact, I try to allow for time to change my perspective. Like, even writing, we're talking about writing. Sometimes I'll write something and I will put it away and I will not look at it for 6 months. And then I'm like, if that idea keeps, you know, talking to my brain, and I keep going, ooh, maybe she could do this. And I, like, have a little section on the bottom where I keep writing tiny notes where it's like, oh, you know, this is Minneapolis. Oh, wait, she's wearing a t-shirt all the time, whatever it is, like, all sorts of details that appear to me, then that's something worthy of my time. And if this person spent, you know, you get a PhD, what's that? That's probably gonna be 10 years, right?
So many years.
So, like, 10 years of spending time, it's like, okay, great. So you love books and you love education, and you, like, what are the things that you love? Because there's 1,000 jobs that also love that. Yeah. Like, you're probably not going to become directly what this is, or, like, you're not going to become the New York Times critic tomorrow. Right. No, but with your knowledge, you can do X, Y, Z. You know, whatever that might be. Or, let's be honest, guys, if you have the privilege, don't use it at all. Just get it and walk away. And go become anything else you'd like to become. Right. Or nothing. Like, it's an option for, if you literally have the money enough to go get a PhD, you're probably going to be fine. Right. So relax.
You're probably okay already.
It's going to be fine. Even if you end up working, you know, for Netflix. Actually, that'd be a great job. What am I talking about?
But yeah, again, like, there are so many people, like, I feel like what you said about, like, this is what you love, find a job that also loves that. Like, I think that's probably the best way to career match these days, is because, like, there aren't, I mean, it used to be, like, if you had a college degree, like, you just got a job. Like, somebody was like, oh, you did the thing. Here's a job. Like,
I think that's a myth. Right? I think that's what they told us, but I don't know that ever happened.
Right. Maybe that was just the way that it was presented to us. I mean, my mom feels that way because she went to college and got her degree. She was 16, got out of school by the time she was 20, and she could just, like, get a job anywhere she wanted. Like, she was also really pretty, so maybe that's...
Well, also back in the day, and I don't presume to know how old your mother is, but back in the day, very few people had college degrees.
Right.
And if you had a college degree, it was like you were fancy.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think about my mother, and she won't listen. She's 70, which means she was graduating from college in 1970.
Yeah.
Like,
my mom graduated sometime in the 70s, I think.
Yeah, and it's like the idea of them having a degree at all was wild. People were like, what? That is, how would you do that? Why are you not already married? Like,
why aren't you having babies yet?
Yeah, exactly. Like, and the difference of that, like, you talk about your mom, and I think about mine because, like, you know, my point of view is totally shaped by her and the way that she presented the world to me. And I still don't know the world is different than what she told me. Like, sometimes people will say stuff, and I'm like, what? What do you mean? All women aren't just strong and tell people to shut up when they should? Why not? Because my mother is like the super strong, intense woman who got her college degree, and at the time people were like, that's ridiculous, I can't believe it, and they would give her tons of things.
My mom put herself through college, like her parents didn't like, but that was back in the day when like you could have like a part-time job in college and then a summer job and like pay for college somehow that
and way impressive.
Whoa. That doesn't happen anymore because no one will give any college kids any real jobs that pay.
Sure, and part-time doesn't pay anything. Yeah. Oh man. Now, but that's like extra impressive to have that be done. See, the problem is that right now we're at a time when like tons of people have college degrees. So the like pool of workers is too much. In fact, what was it? I just read like there's more jobs than there are people looking for jobs right now. But I'm sure they're not jobs people want.
Right.
You know, I'm sure they're like, you know, work in the dirt or pick things in the sun or like just terrible jobs that like don't pay well, but they're there.
A lot of physical labor.
Yeah, whatever things that are there. Like, if people aren't picking the jobs, it's not because the jobs are super fun.
Yeah.
You know, it's like the Google, you know, ping pong guy. No, he's fully employed. He's not leaving. Yeah. There's no space there.
That's so batty about jobs to me, though. I feel like a lot of the people that I know that are doing the thing that they love never went to school for it. They just, like, showed up, made a connection with somebody, and, like, kept making that, like, making an effort to be that person's friend or, like, ingrain themselves in a community or, like, I don't know. It's like it always happens kind of by chance, kind of just by them being like, oh, hey, like, if you ever need any help, let me know. And then it leads to a bigger opportunity and, like, something like that. There are very few people that I know that are, like, in a job that they're, like, yeah, that, like, went to school for it and, like, are, like, now doing the thing, if that makes any sense. I feel like, except for a lot of the creative types that I know that, like, majored in studio art or, like, majored in theater or teaching, like, teaching artists are kind of a different thing. But, like, so many times I feel like it's just like showing up and saying hey and being like, do you have anything you need me to help you with? Like, how can I be of value to you? Or how can, like, could you teach me how to, like, tune this piano or something like that? And then they, like, become a piano tuner. I don't know. I feel like there are so many different ways in which to be educated that aren't traditional school, and a lot of them end up in just kind of interesting, like, career paths and professions, and I don't know, people, like, their information and, like, education is available everywhere now. Like, to anybody that has internet, and that's a whole other thing, because, like, there are parts of this community in, like, not this community, but, like, the U.S. and rural communities that don't have internet because it's basically just too expensive for the internet companies to, like, start up there. So they're like, you just don't get that basic right. At this point, it is kind of a basic right to, like, education and to continuing your education and to, like, starting a business and to running a business in the modern world. So I don't know. I think the idea of education being, like, a traditional and a more, like, formal avenue is kind of being bucked by, like, how much information is readily available, like, in your pocket.
Yeah. I wonder then if that will lead us to do what we were talking about before, which is, like, actually trying to prepare people in a real way. Like, here are real skills that you need, like how to talk to people. I actually wanted to, because these won't ever be, no one will ever create a class like this, so I kind of wanted to make a workshop where it was like, here are ways to keep your head above water. Like, because for 15, 20 years, I've just been treading water trying to pay the bills. Yeah. But I figured out how to juggle it. And so now I'm like a clown at the circus who's like, hey guys, did you know that juggling is easy? Let me show you. And that's how I feel about it. Like, I'm all like, hey, here's a list of companies that if you just call them and tell them that you're having a tough time, they're fine with it. Here we go. Like, you want to sign up for this cell phone company because they're not going to turn it off for 3 months. Like, that kind of stuff. Like, there's little life skills. Like, back in the day, they used to teach you how to, like, balance your checkbook. Now it's like, let me teach you what pending means on your app on your phone. Pay close attention to pending. These are the ones that'll mess you up. Like, that kind of stuff.
Right.
Like,
no, totally. Like, just like basic life skill. I've had an idea for like a little YouTube series where I would just interview different people from different professions, walks of life, whatever, and just have it be called "Don't Be an Asshole."
Yeah.
And talk to them about like the things that piss them off, that they feel like people might not be aware of, that piss them off.
Yeah.
And then like how to be a better person in those types of situations for people that are completely not self-aware. I feel like I'm self-aware to almost a detrimental level where I don't like talk how I should because I'm not like speaking my truth. I'm trying to make people comfortable. Whereas like I feel like
that's tough.
Yeah. Southern woman growing up, that's an interesting bag of cats there.
Yeah, I was raised up north, so I have no problem telling everyone what I think, and also I don't mind if they get mad. I'm like, okay, well, still my opinion.
Cool. Still don't care.
No, you know what though? I think generationally that might also be a thing because I'm starting to feel the old ladyish-ness of like and embrace it. Where I'm all like, hey man, I can make a gaffe and then be like, guys, did I just say something that's terrible? And people will go, yeah, the thing that you just said wasn't because I will use a word wrong or it'll be a new thing and I'll be like, I notice everyone's reacting. What have I done?
Just got incredibly tense.
Like, what have I done? And then they'll tell me, and that way it's safer as opposed to like that way. I'm not afraid to go, how have I wronged you? Because I clearly have, so tell me. And that can be tough in that sort of scenario.
Right.
To bring it to we've been talking about career. How have for you, like, what life lessons have you packed into those 4 years since college that have led you to choose a music career?
Well,
that's a big question. So sorry.
No, I'm trying to think about how to best answer that. I've been through it seems like a billion different jobs, and I'm a hired gun for a lot of different companies, so it never ends as far as like what I feel like I've been doing in Austin. But
it'll never stop.
No,
my favorite thing is temp jobs.
Yeah,
my favorite. 3 seconds. Yeah, good times. I high five as I'm out.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I do a lot of catering, so it's a similar thing. But yeah, I don't know. I held down a restaurant job for a very long time, like service industry, bartender, barista, front of house, all that jazz. And I helped open this restaurant last year, and then it was like, as the restaurant got busier, so did I with my gigs and like my personal project, and more people were asking me to do things, and I was like running up against like trying to schedule with them, and like there not being simultaneously enough coverage for me to take off on a day where I got a last minute opportunity that was going to like be awesome, and like it started to feel really terrible to like be at that restaurant, like not that restaurant, but at any kind of full-time like service job where I was just like, I should be practicing, I should be recording this video, I should be here, you're seeing this person perform, so maybe it'll help, like maybe I'll get on their next lineup or something. It's like when you feel like you're not playing the game to the level that you should, or like simultaneously you're not able to take opportunities that are coming your way because you're kind of beholden to something else. And so I decided in January to leave that job, leave the full-time job, and luckily my parents have been on board and helped me out a little bit, which has been cool. Because, you know, my mom is thrilled that I'm actually performing, like trying to make this a career. Because it's kind of
nice.
I know, like that's not something a lot of people have that are creatives. And, you know, my dad offered to help a little bit so that I could make this transitionary period, because it's kind of just been this thing of like, you know, when going kind of full circle, my mom preparing me when I was a kid, doing all this like stuff, like never sleeping, was basically the same thing as, you know, I would barista at this restaurant. So I would be there early in the morning after playing until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, get 2 hours of sleep, wake up, make coffee for people, get done, go home, shower, go out to another gig, do it all over again, wake up the next morning, do it again, sleep maybe like 6 or 7 hours over the course of a couple like days. And yeah, I mean, it's hard work, but like once you start to kind of build up an audience for yourself and you start to realize like, oh, I could do this full time, it becomes so much harder to like go to that thing that you're not so passionate about.
Yeah.
And no matter if it were the best restaurant to work for in the world, like I would still be hating life, because I would be like, I'm not supposed to be here. Like, I'm supposed to be out there doing that thing. And I think that music is something I've always done from a very young age, and theater was definitely like my focus and my first love for a very long time. And I still love it. I still would love to do plays. Unfortunately, they're just a little more too time consuming for me to commit to at the moment, with like shows and album release and all that.
See what Lady Gaga did. Build your music,
Yep.
and then they'll be inviting you to be the leads in movies.
A Star is Born. I'll be the
telling
next Barbra Streisand or something.
I was like, if you can wait 20 years, they'll make another one.
Yes.
Because that's, I think, the journey. It's every 20
Yeah.
years they make a new one.
But I've just started diving into this world of like doing music full-time, or as full-time as you kind of can as a musician in one town. And I haven't been touring a lot, and that's kind of my next step, is doing the research of going to like Houston, Dallas, San Antonio, doing that kind of small little ring thing, and then going out from there and seeing some more cities, bringing my music to other places. Yeah, it's a wild and crazy ride, and I feel like I'm learning so much so quickly, and there's also just so much I haven't applied yet that I'm still kind of like constantly figuring out and sussing out. And I think it will be like that until like somebody else says, hey, do you want me to manage you or something like that, which would be cool, because I feel like what's hard about being an independent artist like these days is you have so many jobs.
Yeah.
For yourself. You're the performer, you're the content creator, you're the person making sure that like, you know, everybody gets to the rehearsal or to the venue, or and make sure that they know like you're the manager, you're the PR person, you're the booker, you're everything. And I think that becomes really overwhelming, because it's like the part of art that's not art. It's like it's art in its own sense, especially for the people that know exactly how to do it and can pull it off seamlessly. But for somebody who's like, I'm good at like the writing part and I'm good at the performing part, I'm like, how do you business kind of thing? Like, but Austin's a great town for that, because they do have a lot of philanthropic organizations that have workshops, and there's a lot of information readily available. But it's so overwhelming. It's like, it's a lot. It's a lot all the time.
Yeah.
Especially social media. Oh my God. But
yeah, the marketing and PR part in the ever-changing landscape of how to communicate with people is probably the hardest part, because, you know, most of us have something to say, but we don't really know how to say it. So that's the trouble with putting us in that position.
Yeah.
Though at this point in my life, being older and, you know, married for a few years, sometimes I think there's something beneficial to having that time when you're doing all the jobs, because it's almost like, it's like real life, because there's the good parts that you like and you're good at, and then there's the parts you have to do, and even if you're crap at them. And I feel like that's like my whole life. Like sometimes, like in my relationship with my husband, sometimes it's going great, sometimes it's not. In my like just life of, you know, doing whatever I'm doing as an adult person, like, okay, sometimes this works. Okay, sometimes the car doesn't work. Okay, sometimes this bill all of a sudden didn't get paid or whatever. And I'm like, oh, things are turning off. Like whatever it is that I have to deal with, they're not always awesome.
Right.
But sometimes I find that I, you know, develop skills in things I don't like. Like even like talking about the workshop I want to do about like juggling bills. Like turns out I'm great at it. I don't love it. It's not awesome. But turns out I'm really good at it, and I can figure this thing out, and like, let me give you a 5-star life on a 2-star price. Like I got this. You know, but it's hard to develop the skills in something that you don't like.
No, exactly. But it's like, when it feels even better, I feel like, once you do figure that thing out and you're like, you remember how hard it was at first and how much stress and anxiety and angst it caused you. And then like, that's like one of the joys in life for me is like streamlining processes. And I'm like, you know, I think that's the hard thing to do also, is when you are working for yourself, like acknowledging your successes and things you have become better at. Because when I first started trying to contact venues, I remember like 2 years ago, I think I was just like, I don't know how to book gigs. Like, how do you book gigs? Like, how do you contact, like, you just email people and see if they get back to you? Okay, cool, I'll do that. And like, you email people and like you email them all the wrong information first. Like you're not thinking in their shoes. You're just kind of like, this seems right, and maybe I can just send them these things and like that'll be good. And then you like have a friend look at your email. They're like, this is what you're sending to venues, and you're like, yeah. And they're like, no. And they help you, and like they're like, this is what they want to hear. They want to know what dates you're available, that they might have available, and like what you're trying to do and accomplish, and like blah 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 blah. And I think it's learning as you go is a really cool thing, but sometimes it feels like when you're the captain of your own ship, like you haven't done that much, even though there's thousands of miles of ocean behind you. You're like, I'm just here, you know, I'm just at this wheel. Like, I don't get that.
Perspective can be hard when all of a sudden you're like, well, I guess I'm just me. Like, do you think about what you accomplished over the last, like, 3-4 years? You're like, nope, still just me.
Still just me, still suffering.
Right, still same. I'm still somehow dissatisfied, even though everything is different now.
Right. I said this to one of my musician friends the other day. We were just talking about, like, I don't know, we were both having a shitty day, and like we were both just talking about how shitty our days were, and I was like, man, we're pretty miserable for doing something that we love every day. It's like, crap, like maybe I should like take a step back for a second and not mourn my life so much when there's so much to celebrate.
Or at least forgive yourself the sadness that you feel, because there are going to be days when you're sad and days when you're happy.
That's true.
And I think that's the thing that people do to themselves, is that they hurt themselves. They like are angry with themselves for feeling the down days. And I say, let yourself have a down day. I say, you have to, because you're a human being. And if you fight against that, then you're going to ruin your happy days by trying to be, you know, like, I don't know, too present. Like, you can't push presence in your life. It's there or it's not. And, you know, either make your way through it and, you know, slog to the end, or try to enjoy it. But if you're in a bad mood and you're not in the position to like appreciate, man, there's nothing like somebody telling you to appreciate shit to make you angrier, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I was raised Catholic, and there was a lot of that. There's all like, but are you looking at it the right way? And I'm like, all right, listen, forget you and your thought, you know, like, it's not about that. It's about embracing the full journey, I think. Yeah. Happy days, great. Sad days, okay. Now, what I like to do, too, is I like to think, where's the lesson? If I'm having a real tough time, if I am, like, low for longer than like a day or two or whatever, then I'm like, all right, where is it? Show me the lesson, because something's waiting to tell me something.
Yeah.
I mean, think about all the other, like, all of the happy experiences in your life, you'll remember 40% of them. But the negative experiences, you'll remember everyone in crystal detail. And I don't know why our brains do that, but there's got to be a reason. So I just search every detail for lessons all the time.
That's really interesting that you bring that up. I feel like evolutionarily, that's got to be something to do with, like, learning from experiences and, like, I don't know. I mean, we are animals, but our, like, traumas are not necessarily always of, like, the animal kind, you know, like, animals probably remember the time that snake almost got them from that, like, really, like, shady area by the rock, so, like, maybe don't go next to rocks but in the shade kind of thing. It's like, I've unfortunately had some unwanted, like, physical contact, so my brain does work like that on some levels, but, like, I feel like we do the same thing for, like, stressful situations, and, like, it's like the phenomenon of when somebody does something that's, like, similar to how your parents used to talk to you in a certain way, and all of a sudden you're like, you are pissed off. And it's like, it's not because you're pissed off at that person or that single experience. It's because you're pissed off for 1,000 different times of that feeling.
Yeah.
And I think that's so interesting that our brains do that. And that's kind of, like, in my opinion, like, why I do a lot of meditation and yoga is to, like, combat that. It's like, no, like, I mean, yeah, you have to be present and, like, just take somebody for who they are, not who, like, you're projecting onto them that they are in a way. And I think that is also, like, what gets in the way of, like, some band dynamics too. Like, you don't communicate that something's an issue for a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden, like, there's a big, like, blah, like, why can't you just listen to me? Because you never, it's like, and then it's like, then you're just making generalization after generalization, and then it's like, becomes a bigger fight, and everybody's screaming, and nothing productive happens. And, like, I'm not saying, I haven't had an experience exactly like this, but I hear about them.
Well, it sounds like all fights, too. I mean, like, any fight you're going to have in a relationship is going to be like that.
Exactly.
Where it all explodes. And, you know, I know even in those moments, I try my best to listen to what the person's really saying and not the words that they're saying.
Right.
Like, I just had a big fight with my husband, and after a few days, when we sat down to talk about it, I was like, I understand that at the time you were flying off the handle, but these 3 topics came up more than once. So maybe we should talk about those things, because clearly it's something in your brain that's coming up.
Right.
And so it's like, I just wish everyone could be as open to that, to be like, what can we solve in this relationship? Yeah. How can we make this relationship work? Because, like it or not, we're going to have to do it. Let me flip the tone for a second and say, as a sort of wrap-up question, in the next few weeks, you're going to be finalizing your album. What are you excited about? What are the parts that you're really excited to do that maybe you haven't done yet, or even after releasing the album and the touring? What parts are exciting to you?
I think that what I'm most excited about is having something that is like a professional version of, like, what I do and what I've been trying to kind of get people to hear for a long time. I've been working with David McDonald at King Electric, and he's been really gracious and invited some other artists to create parts for certain songs of mine, things that I don't necessarily have in all of my performances, but I am really excited to do a full release show and invite people to play on, like, certain things that I've not had fully realized on tracks before. I think there's a song on there, the last song on the album is called Isn't That Enough, and the whole idea is, like, I think I was in a really good headspace at the time, and the chorus goes, "Didn't you say this wouldn't be easy, but it all comes easy with you. You're scared to start You're scared to start something you might not finish out, but what if this is all we got? We might not make it big, but we could have love, and isn't that enough? And the whole song has like been this like grand kind of build up. Like I have always had like parts in my head, orchestra parts kind of like filling in, and strings and flutes and whatnot. And David McDonald invited somebody to do strings, and I heard it for the first time last night, like in his car, and just like sobbed like a baby. I was like, it's like a fully realized version of like what I have heard in my head for so long, but never like heard, you know?
That's so amazing.
And
I'm
that's
so
really cool.
glad.
Mm-hmm.
That's wonderful.
I'm excited to finally have something to like offer people when they come to my shows. They're like, do you have a CD? And I'm always like, no. Why? I don't know. Just working on it, making it happen. There have been a few times in the past I've tried to make it happen, and I've saved up the money to do it, and then like something with a car happens, and I can't just put that off, and like have to use it to get to work and make other money, and have to like, you know, it should have happened a year ago, but it didn't because I ran into financial trouble, and now I've bartered my services with enough people that I'm making it happen. So that's really cool. And I think to kind of get out of the doom and gloom of everything, like there are so many people that when I've shared what I do with them have been like, how can I help you make this happen? And that's really beautiful. And that's what's really beautiful about the Austin artistic community, I feel like too, is so many people are here and friendly and like want to help you. If you just show up, if you just like keep doing the thing, and like they see that you grow and like you're actually invested, they're gonna be like, yeah, no, I want to help like make this happen for you. And that's super cool.
It is really nice. There's good people in this town.
Yeah. And I think like I've definitely been I know the conversation has trended in like the dark a little bit. That's kind of how my brain goes. I'm very melancholic. But I don't know, like I genuinely have a lot of optimism for like what's ahead. I think that honestly my therapy sessions have just been like bringing a lot of stuff up recently, so my brain's like having a rough time of it. But I am really, really excited for this album to come out. I think it's gonna say a lot of things I have been wanting to say for a while, and that's really cool. It's really cool that people want to help me with it too. So
smart to be dealing with it with a therapist early on too, because I bet you the subsequent tour is going to be wild. Totally wild. Well, you know, thank you so much for sitting down with me and chatting about your creative process and the creative process in general. I think we had a lot of interesting points come up, and I appreciate you sharing, and I'm really excited to hear the album and, you know, for you to go on and have another exciting adventure.
Same here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for listening to Yes But Why Podcast. Check out all our episodes on yesbutwhypodcast.com, or check out all the content on our network, HC Universal, at hcuniversalnetwork.com.